What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another week of Shcmac Talk. And we got a lot to recap this week with the top 25.
We got some
Um,
hard hitters for you.
yeah, some hard hitters. Like, I don't think you guys are ready for
I
what
don't think
just
you guys,
happened and what we're
yeah.
predicting because everything's in shambles a little bit.
Even our intro.
Exactly.
You guys do not know how long that took just to do that.
We're trying.
Maybe at some point we'll give like a behind the scenes. This is what we go through on a daily basis. Anyway, okay, to get actually on track. This one purely, college football. If you are not a college football fan, I'm sorry, this is not your cup of tea today. But if you are a college football fan, hopefully you guys paid attention this past weekend. November, what was Saturday the 13th?
Yeah,
November 13th. Wow, I missed Friday the 13th by one day.
I know, right?
Oh man.
It was basically the same thing though for college football though. So
For real, Saturday the 13th. It was crazy day. Crazy day. If you followed the sport, just glancing at it, we had a handful of upsets as well as a lot of close calls for
oh
some
yeah.
teams. I'm just looking at this. Let's see. Michigan close call, Auburn upset, Baylor upsets Oklahoma. Utah was in a dogfight for most of it. Iowa barely pulls away against Minnesota. What else was there? Oh, Wake Forest barely pulling away from NC State. Arkansas escaping Baton Rouge. Ole Miss and A&M in a wild 30 points or less for both teams in the SEC. Notre Dame finally wins. Finally wins the way they're supposed to.
Finally just got something.
Yeah. San Diego State barely escaping. UC, if you watch that game on Friday, a lot closer than it looks.
Yeah.
Pitt escaping in overtime and Oregon kind of pulling away in the fourth. So we're gonna, dive deep into all these, but it was a great weekend of football. If we're
Yeah.
being completely honest, if you're a fan of college football, it was actually a great weekend.
Yeah. And I think we're just getting into the stride of the season where everyone's got
Oh, it's
their
go
top
time.
game. Yeah. Like, and if
It's
you're
go
not
time,
showing
man.
up and you make one little mistake, that could be the game right there.
It,
Like,
it could be the season. It's not even
yeah.
just a game. It's the season. And I think, well, we're seeing that from Florida.
Oh gosh. Ugh.
I did not know until I woke up this morning and someone was like, yeah, Florida has 5 losses. And I said, excuse me, what?
Yeah.
Florida,
That
the team that ended the season with 2 losses last year and probably should have beat Alabama in the SEC
yeah.
championship game. Like, they gave them a game. I shouldn't say probably should have beat Bama because Bama was the better team, but hung with them.
Yeah. And
And
that blew my mind
that they're so bad
when
this
you
year.
brought that up because I was like, no, no. Florida is like they're not ranked, but they're still a decent team, you know? Like, and
It's
plus with
the
previous years, they've always been like top 25 somewhere in there.
Well, it's that brand. I think, we've talked about it before. Texas. When you hear Texas, we think of Vince Young. When you
Yeah.
hear of USC, we think of Reggie Bush. So when you think of Florida, you think of Tebow, right? I mean, that's what we
Yeah.
think of. But it's that brand. It's like Florida's not supposed to be bad. Texas isn't supposed to be bad. USC isn't supposed to be god awful. And guess what? All 3 of them suck this year.
Yeah.
That's the reality. All 3 of them are terrible. I say we just start there. We weren't going to talk about it, but I think it needs to be. The elephant in the room needs to be addressed. Texas lost to Kansas, people.
What the frick?
They lost to
Like,
Kansas.
seriously?
They lost to Kansas.
And no, this
Kansas
isn't
was
basketball. This isn't basketball.
exactly right. And then
It's
what
football.
makes it even better in that same day, Texas lost in basketball. Like, oh my God.
2 losses, 1 day.
Horns
Much
down.
appreciated.
Horns down. I better be careful with that. They might throw a penalty at me. 15 yards.
15 yards, guys. Come on.
Unsportsmanlike conduct.
Let's keep it respectful.
Oh my gosh. I just can't believe it. Like, I understand when it's a first year coach, there's going to be some bumps, and we'll see, next year if Texas comes back and if they're Texas again. But I mean, you should have beat Oklahoma. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
You should have beaten Oklahoma, but then you got smacked against Arkansas. Like Arkansas just, whew. And then
But you could almost argue that Arkansas is kind of a sleeper. Like,
yeah, I think right now Arkansas, if they stayed in the 20s ranked in there, I'd be okay with it because I don't think they're higher than 20. They're a team,
yeah,
I think they're very similar to like a Purdue, where it's if you
yeah,
do sleep on them, they're gonna wake you up real quick.
yeah,
But they're not better than you. You know what I mean? Like
yeah,
they're not a team that you're like, oh yeah, they can hang with us, because in reality they can't. But if you overlook them, then
yeah.
they're gonna make you regret it. So I mean that I think they just overlooked them. But like other than that, they've just looked awful this year. Like
Yeah.
Texas has just looked
Like,
terrible. And I'm sorry, you have good talent. I'm sorry, my dog is chasing her tail. I thought we were over this at almost 3 years old. uh,
nope.
yeah, no, it's fine. For all you pet lovers out there, you know exactly what I'm talking about. The zoomies are a thing.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. 3
but
o'clock, come to my house.
oh,
It's lit. It's
oh
lit.
yeah, it's always between 5:30 and 6 here. It's just so funny. It makes me think of when she was a puppy and she's like, "Oh my god, I had a tail." It's like, you still have a tail, dummy. But
I found this tail, guys. I don't know what it is. I found it though.
I think that's the best thing is when they realize they have a tail. But to get back to Texas, I think it's more I'm frustrated. And it's like I understand you're a first year coach and you're trying to make your culture and everything, but you're Texas. Like you have good
Yeah.
players at the school. Like it shouldn't be a complete rebuild, complete rebrand, reculture. Like you have the players to win. Like Herman was winning there. He
Yeah.
just wasn't winning to the degree that they wanted. Right? I mean,
Yeah. And I mean, that's one thing that like you start getting into the political side of being a head coach where it's like, hey, you lost 2 games last year. Like what's going on, And like, yeah, you can make that argument that it's like all on the coach's fault, but most of the time, like if it's a 1 to 3 loss season, it's typically not a bad season. And I think we run into like now, like the culture is just like, hey, we need to win. We need to win. If we're not winning, we're not playing. Like something needs to change. And like I kind of get behind that a little bit, but I get there when it's like 5 losses and you're not making any changes, or you're just squeezing by on those last couple of games where it's just like tight and like you should be winning by a bigger like point difference. And
yeah,
that I think we're in a league now where if you're sleeping around, like not trying to be number 1 and you're making a bunch of silly mistakes, that's a loss. Like the talent for in college football right now, like team wide, you could almost say is so much higher than it's been in previous years. Like I feel like most schools nowadays are getting 4 and 5-star recruits. It's not, I don't want to say more available, but it's also like more present.
I think they are more available though, because I think the development is starting even sooner. So like I almost think that at some point we're gonna see 6-star or like we're gonna see it increase even more just because of how many good players there are in today's game. But it's an interesting point. I think we'll have to keep our eye on Texas. We'll see can they bounce back in the Big 12 before they go to the SEC. I just find it hilarious that they lost to Kansas.
Yeah,
because it's the running joke is that Kansas is worse than like Rutgers. Which Rutgers and Indiana were playing this week, and I did not know that Rutgers had more wins than Indiana.
Yeah.
I turned that on for a little bit and I was like, oh, Rutgers is kind of like having their way with them. Okay.
Yeah, like I was like, I'm actually surprised with how the Big Ten looks this year. Like as far as like Rutgers goes, they're actually like a decent team.
They're not
Indiana,
bad, but that's because of
eh,
Shiano.
yeah, yeah. But I think we're definitely at a point where like we're late in the season, teams have their stuff figured out. And if you're not showing up to play, it could potentially be a loss.
Well,
And
yeah,
like
it's win
I
or
don't
go home at
know
this
if
point.
you watched any of the Michigan Penn State game,
Oh, I watched the whole thing. I
but
watched the
dude,
whole thing. Also,
dude.
don't mind Jordan in the background. Delilah puked.
Oh, nice.
So thank you to my lovely fiance for cleaning it up. Oh, that can't go on air. You're gonna have to
We're gonna
blur
get
that out.
demonetized, even though we're not
Yeah.
monetized.
I watched almost the entire thing of Michigan State. Or not Michigan State. I watched that entire thing too. Michigan Penn State. Yeah, I have a lot of thoughts on that one.
Yeah, like I'm just looking at like the recap for it, and I'm just seeing like trash from Michigan, and they're still a top school. Like, I
I
mean,
think
Penn
it's
State isn't a bad team though. So it's like one of those things where it's like,
the record is deceiving
yeah,
because they're 4 losses. So they beat Auburn. I think that's what everyone's forgetting. Penn State beat Auburn.
yeah,
Okay. Penn State beat Wisconsin. Like, let's not forget that either. Like, two of their wins are against good teams. I think, we're seeing that Auburn and Wisconsin are not what we're used to them being, which is fine, but it's quality wins. But their losses are, Iowa after they lost their quarterback, Ohio State, where they honestly played their butts off.
yeah,
Illinois, which that loss shouldn't have happened. Let's be completely frank and honest. That shouldn't have happened. They were looking ahead to Ohio State. Sean Clifford was not healthy. And then they lost to Michigan in a game that, if we're being completely honest, Penn State dominated that game.
yeah,
Like, they dominated the game. And if it wasn't for that tight end streaking down the field at the end of the game, Penn State would have won that game.
yeah.
So they were one big play away, like preventing that one big play from taking down a giant.
Yeah.
And I think that's where Penn State, we've always talked about, is James Franklin has them right there. He just can't get over that hump.
Yeah.
Consistently where he's beating those teams.
And I think that will come. I think it's just more they're trying to figure out a couple of things and like get everything set up so that they can overcome those like last minute wins. And like even if you're looking at just like last week, Penn State and Michigan were split as far as scoring more in each quarter. Michigan does have a lower deficit of points, I believe. No, it's about the same, honestly. Like first quarter, Penn State was up 3. Second quarter, Michigan was up 7-3, or 7-6. Sorry.
Yeah.
Third quarter, Michigan scores again 14, and then Penn State didn't score any. So then you're going into the final quarter, and it's 6-14, and Penn State pulls out 11 points out of nowhere. And then Michigan gets 7. So they basically just pull away with just Penn State not having an extra touchdown.
I would also like to point out that this game, I don't care. This is my personal opinion. So all the people that could disagree, I mean, you have that right to disagree. But if you truly watch that game, you cannot really argue with me the fact that James Franklin decision-making on fourth down cost them that game.
Yeah, it really did.
He went for it on a fourth down when you didn't need to go for it. And it's still early in the game. And then he does a fake field goal.
Yeah.
I disagree with the points. And it also comes down to execution in the red zone. Those 2 field goals, should have been touchdowns.
Yeah.
You call it better plays, you execute it, and it's touchdowns. Penn State was moving the ball on Michigan. It was not the other way around. I understand that you see, 3 points, 3-point, and that, Michigan had 3 touchdowns. So it's like, they were moving. No, Penn State was moving the ball. They just couldn't finish.
Yeah.
And then if you add, I think it changes the complete complexion of the game. If he kicks that field goal instead of a fake field goal, that gives you 3 more points. That changes the whole dynamic of the game.
Yeah. And plus you're going to have a whole kickoff, and that right there alone changes the whole offset of what happens.
Yeah, because if you block or you stop somebody on a fake field goal, you have all the momentum at that point.
Yeah.
You give up a field goal, you're like, okay, we bent, we didn't break, but we still gave up points, and now we got to start from 0. So, I mean, to some extent, I think Harbaugh got outcoached yet again.
Yeah.
But then I also believe that James Franklin gave the game away.
Yeah. And so I don't think it was complete bust for Harbaugh, but I don't think it was a success for Harbaugh.
I think he's on the chopping block, though.
But you're definitely on the chopping block.
Because you already lost to Michigan State. You already lost to your in-state rival. And then when you host, the Ohio State University Buckeyes in the Big House, if you lose to them, and if you lose to them by more than 30, I think you're gone. Because your margin of losing or your deficit or whatever. I mean, it lasts 2-3 seasons. Ohio State's won by at least 20 points. They haven't been close games. So it'll be interesting. I think, we were kind of talking about this off air. I'm more concerned about the Michigan State game than the Michigan game.
Yeah.
Because what I see is, okay, Penn State's a legit defense. They slowed that offense down, but they're also a one-dimensional offense.
Yeah.
Very one-dimensional, more one-dimensional than Michigan State. But then also, you moved it on their defense. They got dudes on defense. Michigan has a really great defense. Penn State's is better. There's no question. But you have a banged-up, injured offense, and you're moving it on Michigan. You just can't get the touchdowns.
Yeah.
You got to settle for field goals. So I think that changes the whole complexion of the game. So if we can get touchdowns instead of field goals, I don't think it's going to be close with them.
Yeah. And I think that just comes down to, we were talking the other week, Michigan State and Michigan, they're both kind of one-dimensional offenses. But when it comes down to it, we both think Michigan State is a better team compared to Michigan. I mean,
it's more complete team.
Yeah, more complete. And when it comes to Michigan, they just can't play anyone that's decent.
No, it seems like anytime they go up against an above average opponent, they struggle.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what it looks like. That's what the outside world sees.
Yeah. So I don't know if maybe it's just so-and-so didn't listen to me all game and was doing the wrong thing. Someone missed their play calls or whatever you want to argue. But we're seeing it consistently now that Michigan is just scraping away at wins.
Yes.
And when they do face a tough opponent, it is, hey, we might win. We also might lose.
You know who it reminds me of?
Who?
Notre Dame.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, if I'm being completely honest,
it reminds me on the nail, though.
It reminds me of Notre Dame year in and year out. And I think that's the thing that frustrates me the most is looking at the top 10. As we said last week, I don't really have an issue with the top 10. It's just when I look at the top 10, the two biggest fakers I see are Michigan and Notre Dame. Those are the two teams that, I understand
Cincinnati.
We can sit there and argue about UC, but I'm just saying they hang their hat on the fact that they are, we're Michigan, we're Notre Dame, we're historic programs, and I'm like, but you're a fake.
Yeah,
that's my big thing with them. UC, I don't argue with people because it's no, they don't deserve to be in the top 4. Whatever. And speaking of UC, let's just talk about that game. Talk about that debacle. Did you watch that game at all?
So I caught bits and snippets of it, but not anything that was two out there that I was like, oh wow, UC looks pretty freaking good, like I saw probably, I'd say, quarter 1 and 2, and then little snippets of the second half, and
See,
then the
I
final
saw,
score.
yeah, I saw the third and fourth quarters because I had forgotten. See, I don't. If a game is on Friday, like I don't hear anything. I didn't hear
Yeah,
anything about the Pitt game.
yeah,
The Pitt North Carolina, I had no idea that was on Thursday, and it was a really good game. And I was like, man, I wish I would have seen that whole thing.
yeah,
But the UC game, what I got out of it from the picture that the commentators were painting is that they like went ahead and then let, was it South Florida, come back
yeah,
into it. And then it was a game, because when I had it on in the fourth quarter, I was like, oh my, like, yeah, okay, 24-7 at halftime. And then
yeah,
in the third quarter, it was 31-21. So it was a 10-point game. Yeah. So
yeah,
when I tuned in, it was a 10-point game. And I was like, 10 points to South Florida? Like, I know what the final score, was. It came out to be almost a 20-point victory. So a 17-point victory. But I think it's just another example of you're not doing what you're supposed to.
yeah. Like if you want to be top 10 and you're playing at 2-8,
Yeah,
or I should say 2-7,
They were 2 and
Georgia,
7. Yeah.
Southern Florida.
At the time, they were 2 and 7.
Yeah, like, bro, this should be a blowout. Yeah,
I think that's the thing that people always forget is they're like, oh well, like nobody says anything about like Ohio State or Alabama. And it's like Ohio State, Alabama, and Georgia. If they don't win by 30, somebody says something,
yeah,
and that's when they're playing like a 500 team. You're
yeah,
playing a 2-loss team and you won by 17. Sorry, if you want to be in the top 4, you need to win by 30 or 40 points. So
yeah,
people are going to talk about you. I'm sorry, that's the truth. So
yeah.
I just,
Welcome
at
to the
this
big
point,
house. Like, you want to run with
yeah,
the top dogs. That's
welcome
what
to
it
the
is.
big boy football.
Yeah, no
I
more
just,
American League.
yeah, I just think like it's just another nail in the coffin of UC. You're just going to be on the cusp. Somebody's going to jump you in the Power 5 because they're going to have better wins. And it's going to be like, like if Baylor makes a run now, it's going to be, oh, wow, they had like whatever that victory against Oklahoma, like, oh, they kind of dominated a top 10 team and you didn't for 4 weeks straight now. That's the big thing. It's not just one time. Everyone has one game. You've struggled for 4 weeks in a row now.
Yeah, and I think it just comes down to the fact that the teams that we are seeing now are end of the season teams. They have everything figured out. They're ready to go, but we're not seeing those blowouts from teams that need those blowouts. Like UC really needed to blow out South Florida. I keep wanting to say Georgia Southern for some reason, and I don't know why.
Georgia Southern.
But like,
I probably had
I
a
just
better
don't.
chance if it was Georgia Southern.
Yeah, like, dude, it just like blows my mind that people are still like writing Cincinnati. And like, don't get me wrong, I love playing that person, being like, oh hey, UC Gats by 90. But like at this point, it's like, okay, you're getting ranked in the top 10.
You're up
like,
there because you're undefeated and you started up there.
Yeah, that's the only reason. I think they'll finish out the season. They'll win out.
They'll be in the top
not
10.
that difficult. Yeah.
Like they'll potentially be in the top 5. But the reality is, if they're struggling with this level of competition, if you throw them in against Georgia, because in all reality, unless the whole like, the craziness that we laid out a couple of weeks ago, where it's like if Ohio State loses and Michigan somehow gets in because they look to be the fakest of the Big Ten, but like if it's all that, like an Oregon loses and Oklahoma State loses, like if none of that happens and they get in, they're going to play Georgia.
Yeah, and so
or they're going to play Alabama.
Loss.
Or they're going to play Oregon or Ohio State, which are both going to be lost. Exactly. Like it.
I'm so like blown away that like they're still like, I get they're like undefeated. Yeah, that's tough to do. And they're also just like really riding that, oh, hey, we're a part of the Big 12.
Oh my God.
And I'm like,
It's
you're not in the Big 12 yet. Once your schedule is an actual Big 12 schedule.
Once you actually get there, let me know.
Yeah, like give me a call and let me see that undefeated record again. If that's still there,
But
yeah,
again,
we'll
like
put you in.
but
But
again,
like,
we've talked about that. If they go undefeated in the Big 12, it's a Big 12 without Texas and Oklahoma. So
yeah,
there's not as much merit.
yeah. And like, even
Or,
then, like, okay, you go undefeated in the Big 12, cool. Like, I still think they'd get blown out in a bowl game. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, okay,
yeah.
prediction for UC, they're gonna win
Oh
out.
boy.
Dead. Like, they're gonna win. If they make it to the college playoff, lost first round, guaranteed. If they make it to a bowl game where they play any school in the top top 10, loss.
Well, okay. I would hit pause on that because here's the issue we're seeing. You know, what I've noticed in the last 3 years is ever since the college football playoff, really, if your team's not in it, then a lot of these top prospects don't play because they
Yeah.
don't want their draft stock to get hurt. And what I've noticed is that this has benefited these, UCF and UC teams. Okay. We saw UCF go undefeated and name themselves the national champs because they beat Auburn. And Auburn beat Alabama that year, and Alabama won the national championships, so therefore that UCF is the national champs. But what people forget about that game is that Auburn had a lot of guys out due to injury, and then a bunch of their other top prospects were sitting out because they were playing UCF in a non-important bowl game.
Yeah.
And we saw the same thing last year. Well, like, I'll admit, I was rooting for UC to beat Georgia. I was, because I was like, that would be great. That would be fantastic. I love Fickle. We've talked about Fickle at length on this show. But last year, Georgia was out without a lot of their star players because they were like, why would I play in a bowl game after just going through a season that is the SEC? Why would I play a bowl game against UC?
Yeah.
That's the only thing is I wouldn't say that they're going to lose to every single team in the top 10, because I could see a lot of those bigger programs, the players being like, no, I'm just going to train for the NFL draft. I'm not in the, like, we're not in the Final Four. But those guys from UC, they're not like those guys from Michigan or Michigan State or Oklahoma State or Notre Dame, with the brand that it's like, oh, well, this guy's going to be good. They have to prove themselves a little bit more. So they're going to go out and ball out and potentially beat a team that they really shouldn't, because it's not 100% versus 100%.
Yeah.
So,
but I mean, like, when I say like UC is going to go to a bowl game, I'm saying like they go to a bowl game, play any of the other top 10 schools. Okay, well, maybe Notre Dame, they might win, but like
just because they already beat them.
But like, other than
I
that,
would be
Ole
interested.
Miss would smack UC. You tell me Ole Miss does not win.
I think Ole Miss would.
Oklahoma State,
their defense,
disgusting. It wouldn't surprise me if they played and Oklahoma State holds UC to inside 150 yards on offense.
If you had to tell me, if I had to pick between Notre Dame and UC right now, though, based on how they've been playing the last couple of weeks, I think Notre Dame would edge them. Yeah, I think Notre Dame has found their stride. They finally found their run game, and that's the big thing that nobody's really talking about is UC has lucked out. Their big games against Notre Dame and Indiana were early in the year.
Yeah.
Early in the year, before these big programs got their feet under them. And, we just see Indiana's having a down year.
Yeah.
So really it's like, oh, your big game against Notre Dame. You just had one.
Yeah.
And that was before Notre Dame found their footing.
Yeah.
So I still think Notre Dame sucks, but that's because I don't like Notre Dame.
But it's like, I don't know. At this point, I think it's just kind of a joke with having UC in the top 10. Like, as much as people can want to be upset about that, like, once they start playing like decent teams on the regular and late season, like, yeah, then if they're still undefeated, I'll give them credit for it. but like they just don't have that credit. Yeah, they're undefeated, cool.
Well, they don't have the
They beat Notre
resume.
Dame, but like
They don't have
you're
the
coming out of an
resume.
American conference. Yeah,
Exactly.
they really
Exactly.
just don't have the resume of, hey, we can hang with these top schools. Like they play a couple ranked teams, maybe one or two early season, and that's it.
I think they
That's it.
only play because SMU lost. And I don't think SMU is ranked anymore. I think their
They're
only
not.
ranked game is against Notre Dame.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we'll see. To get off the UC bashing that we do on a
Yeah.
weekly basis, I think our listeners are just kind of used to it. They're like, "Oh wow, you guys really hate it," and I'm like, "Yes, it's very annoying. Okay, it's
Yeah.
very frustrating." Um, but where do you want to go next with all the madness?
Honestly, I think we should touch on the SEC before
Oh,
we
the
get too
SEC.
crazy, because I mean the SEC, we're looking at Georgia,
Georgia, Bama, Ole Miss, A&M, Auburn, Mississippi State. What else is there? Arkansas.
yeah,
Oh my God.
like
Oh man.
with the SEC
Strap
right
in.
now,
Strap in.
I just want to knock this part out. Alabama,
Oh boy.
New Mexico State.
You did your job.
You did good. You did good. I'm proud of you. Can you do that consistently the rest of the season, though?
I didn't know New Mexico State only had one win though.
Yeah,
That win looks even less impressive now. I mean, like it was a gimme win. Like they probably paid them like, here's $3 million to come get your ass kicked.
Yeah, and so like I'm happy that they won and everything, because like I don't know, it started to look like they were actually playing as a team and not just, oh hey, let's go out there and hike a ball and then run ball and
yeah, but
do
I mean,
this but like they actually showed up and actually kind of did good. And why can I not find this game right now?
I mean, I think it's very similar to the Ohio State Akron game after the loss to Oregon. It was kind of like, okay, here's a tune-up, try to fix everything.
Yeah.
So I mean, we'll see this week. I don't know who they have this week.
I believe Alabama's got Auburn this week.
They got Auburn final week of the season. I know that. Oh man, I'm looking at.
Oh, here we are.
No. Oh my gosh, they got Arkansas, dude. Woo, Pig Suey.
Let's get it. Yeah.
Too bad it's not at Arkansas.
If it was, what do you think would happen there?
I think.
What are your predictions for next week? Do you think Alabama's got what it takes to?
I think Alabama. Well, yeah, do they have what it takes to beat Arkansas? Yes, they do. They do have what it takes. Will they beat them?
Yeah.
I think they will. I think it'll be closer than the 20.5 point spread, though.
Yeah.
I think that's a little obnoxious. Yeah. Sorry.
I definitely go against that spread.
I mean, okay, let's just talk about. So you're telling the spread, Alabama, Arkansas. Oh yeah, no, I'm taking Arkansas on the points for sure. Yeah. Like I'm going to take them to cover that. You're saying that Alabama is going to be a ranked team by 20.5 points, but Notre Dame is going to beat an unranked Georgia Tech team by 16 points?
Nope.
You're telling me that Alabama's that good? I mean, nope. They're good, but that might be a game that I circle. Actually, yeah, I mean, I
definitely plan on watching it.
I can watch it. Yeah, because Michigan State's at noon, so I can watch that game.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I mean, if Alabama plays Arkansas and they struggle,
dude, if Arkansas wins, I'm buying an Arkansas shirt. If Arkansas wins, I'm buying an Arkansas shirt. You heard it here. Like, I'll legit go buy an Arkansas shirt because that would just make my year. Like,
you'll see it next week on the podcast.
No, the shipping's not that quick.
Oh yeah, so maybe 2 weeks.
I'll show it off when I get it.
But yeah, Alabama kind of gave me hope that they're kind of back, but I still think that they still got some work they need to do.
I'm not buying. I'm buying stock in Georgia, and I'm just leaving it.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No. At this point, I think the graves are dug, and I think Georgia's got it in the SEC.
I know they struggled. Like we can touch on Georgia as well right now.
Yeah.
They struggled against Tennessee in the first half, but like they're just a
They
team
came
that
back though. Like
they're
they're a
the
second half
team.
team. Second half team for
I don't think
sure.
it's a second half team. I think that they're just a very flexible, cool and collected team that's going to figure it out. Like nothing
Yeah.
phases them.
And I don't think it was so much just like the first half. I think it was more like the first quarter. They
Because, well,
struggled.
yes, well, think about this. So Tennessee came out guns a-blazing against Bama and hung with them for 3 quarters, and Bama
Yeah.
had no idea what to do. Tennessee comes out guns a-blazing against Georgia, hangs with them for a quarter, and then Georgia said, "Oh, that's nice. Go sit down."
Yeah.
Like
It's like,
that's the
okay.
difference that we're seeing right now is when Bama gets punched in the mouth, they're like, "Oh my God, what do we do? We're not used to this."
Yeah.
And Georgia's just kind of like, "Okay, that was cute. Take
Good job.
this." Like,
Yeah.
so I think that's why like we're buying stock in Georgia right now, and
Yeah.
I'm not touching Bama. I'm sorry,
Yeah.
because I just if they
It's
were to
just the
lose
for
to
sure
Arkansas, I mean, yeah, Georgia, yeah, but like Bama, like I think they'll struggle against Arkansas because we've seen them struggle the last couple SEC weeks, and then they got Auburn, and I believe it's at Auburn.
I
So I
believe
think we looked that
so.
up a couple weeks ago. Is that it's at Auburn? So go War Eagle, right? I mean, those aren't easy games. That's not like what Ohio State has to end the season with,
Yeah.
but those aren't easy games. I know, like we said, Arkansas is a wild card, and Auburn is a little down this year, a little inconsistent. But like,
Yeah.
so is Bama. They're
Yeah.
inconsistent this year, so
If
I wouldn't
Bama
be
comes in
surprised
and
if they
plays like they did 2 weeks ago
against LSU they'll lose.
against
They'll lose
LSU,
to
yeah,
both.
they'll
They'll lose to
lose
both
to
those
Auburn
teams.
and Arkansas.
Yeah.
But I think honestly, the big game that they need to watch out for there is definitely going to be Auburn, because I think that they have just like it's just the Iron Bowl, baby.
I
It's the
know
hype.
it's not as big as the game, but it's
I
the
don't
Iron
know.
Bowl.
I don't know.
No, it's not as big as the game. Dude.
If you go down a little south there,
well,
go down into
I
Alabama.
am in the South.
I mean, okay, upper part of the South, but all right.
Really, not really. Really, it's more like the eastern part of the South, but nice try.
Yeah, true, but all right.
I'm not in Tennessee or North Carolina. I'm below them.
Barely. South Carolina? What?
Dude, do you know how like where Charleston is? I'm almost like equal with Atlanta.
Yeah. Oh, that's true.
Like I'm down here.
We out here.
Hey. No, I mean, no, I get what you're saying. It's just I think when someone says the game, like when someone says the Iron Bowl, it's football. When someone says the game, it's every sport. I think that's the difference, is that like it truly is Red Sox Yankees. Whereas it doesn't matter. Like every single, and we saw it a couple years ago when Auburn was down. It was like, oh, this Iron Bowl is pretty boring. Like, where's the juice?
Yeah.
But there's always juice in the game. So I'll always like, I would love to go. That's on my bucket list, is going to Alabama, going to Auburn, each like, or at least one for an Iron Bowl, just to see the atmosphere.
It'd be such a good game.
Same with like LSU, Alabama, like yeah, those are definitely on my bucket list. Just like going to Penn State for a game is, but I don't think the Iron Bowl is bigger than the game. Yeah, and they'll play Simba, Nas, Circle of Life at the beginning. Oh dude, was it last year or 2 years ago? I think it was 2 years ago when Minnesota upset Penn State and they played "The Lion Sleeps Tonight" after the game at Minnesota.
That's so great, though. That's so funny.
Minnesota gained so much respect and love from me.
Oh, yeah.
When that happened, I just hate their little ball head gnome coach and PJ Fleck. I just don't like him. But we're getting off topic. No, I think the next couple of weeks is going to be very interesting because we're going to see what Alabama's really made of.
Yeah.
And you brought up LSU in there because LSU kind of like exposed Bama. LSU is looking like they're just trying to expose everybody because it looks like they just exposed Arkansas last week. like what?
Like
3
LSU is one
point.
of those teams that like if they're not winning out and they're not making it to a bowl, they're
Oh,
gonna just they're just gonna ruin everyone else's chances.
they give you scares. They give you scares.
Yeah.
Like they're just like, we're just gonna ruin your season. I'm like, oh really? That's nice. Thanks.
It's like, nice. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
We were going to a bowl game. No, we're not.
Oh man. But no, I think really that's all that needs to be touched on with the LSU Arkansas.
Yeah.
Like we said, Arkansas, it's hit and miss. LSU is just looking to play spoiler. I was very interested to see Auburn just completely fall apart against Mississippi State. I don't know.
I'm surprised they didn't.
You're surprised who didn't what?
I'm surprised Ole Miss didn't, or not Ole Miss, the Mississippi State didn't upset.
Mississippi State did upset.
What the frickin'?
They won by 9. They outscored Auburn 33-6 in the second half.
Dude, I'm so dyslexic.
You are.
Well, it's also confusing. I'm literally just looking at it and I'm like, oh, wow.
But that is confusing though, because it is 43-34. Like I could see how you just swap it. But I mean, I didn't watch any of this game. Like I'll watch Auburn every now and then because I don't really have an issue with Auburn. But I saw, they're up 28-10 at halftime. You know, at one point in the second half, it was 28-3. I'm like, whatever. Okay, Mississippi State. And then I see on the ticker, Mississippi State upset. I was like, hold up, what?
Excuse me? Roll it back.
You scored 28 points. 28 points in the first half and 6 in the second half. Like, if that's not just an utter debacle, I don't know what is anymore.
Yeah.
Like,
At this point, like I'm saying I don't get it. No one is safe anywhere.
Well, yeah, I would agree with that. You know, we've talked about how this year has shown us that. But I think that makes the Alabama Auburn game even more, because now Auburn's like, well, let's just ruin their season. You know, like we got nothing to lose. We're completely out of it. We're probably not going to be ranked this week anymore. So let's just ruin their season, which I would love to see. And then what was the last SC? Oh, you talked about Ole Miss. Oh man, and their lovely baby blue uniforms. Oh, please make that a hallmark. Please keep wearing those. Those are so crisp. Those are so nice. I'm going to become a Rebels fan.
But those jerseys make me just want to be like, hey, just Ole Miss,
good.
What's up?
They're so
throwing on the jersey today.
Good. You know, I was happy to see them beat A&M because I personally just don't like Jimbo Fisher. I just don't like him. So
honestly, I've never been a big fan of A&M just because, well, they gave us freaking money and just was garbage.
Johnny man,
garbage.
You're talking about an overrated dude. Yet he won the Heisman. That's why. Oh Lord. But no, I think that A&M game shows again that they don't really have a quarterback. They don't really have an offense. They kind of just. I think that's what frustrates me the most is they were 7-2 going into that game. I mean, both teams were 7-2 going into that game, but they were not number 11 in the nation. Like that was straight up the committee saying, "Oh, we want Alabama at 2, but we have to like protect them at 2. So A&M only has 2 losses. Let's put them at 11." Because if you watch their games, they're not a top 15 team.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, like they're just not.
It's just sloppy. Like I feel like it's like they go with the whole like ask Madden for the play call.
Or like the Ask Corso, like
yeah.
Oh man,
I'm just sitting there. I'm like, what?
It's like Jimbo. What do we do? I don't know. Let me radio Corso real quick.
Like, I forget what the movie's called, but it's like a spoof movie of like The Longest Yard, like the Bad News Bears, and like a bunch of those movies. And I can't think of what it's called. But there's a part where like they're on the field and they're trying to like figure out a play to run. It's like, I don't know. I'm all out of everything. And he's on like playing Madden, and he clicks the Ask Madden thing, and it's like, oh no, we can't do that.
I mean, yeah, they might be at this point. I saw somewhere that if Bama loses to Arkansas and excuse me, Arkansas and Auburn, and if A&M wins, they have the tiebreaker against Bama, so that A&M would get in. I'm like, oh well, if I'm Georgia, I'm like, yeah, I want that to happen.
Yeah,
because if I'm Georgia, I don't want it to be Bama, just because you don't want it to be Bama, right?
yeah.
But then I also don't want it to be Ole Miss, which Ole Miss is still like, if A&M loses, at least I think Ole Miss, or in order for Ole Miss to get in, I have to like refresh, but I think it's Bama loses both and A&M loses both. I think if that happens, Ole Miss gets in, because then they have the tiebreaker over A&M. So
I don't know though, honestly, because I think if Alabama loses, Ole Miss would jump up to number 2 in SEC, right?
Ole Miss lost to Bama though. That's the issue. So that's where like they have to lose twice. But if A&M doesn't lose twice, then A&M's tied with Bama and has a tiebreaker, even though Ole Miss. So I don't know. Like, I think it's, in order for Ole Miss, the safest thing is Bama loses twice and A&M loses twice. But if Ole Miss loses these last two, then and Arkansas wins their last two, Arkansas is in it. I do know that for sure. I don't think that's going to play out. However, that could happen.
Yeah. Dude, it gets so confusing with these last couple of games, because
which is
just
good.
Like,
it's because it's
I like
good
it
football.
because it's like it's good football. It's not like, oh, Alabama's playing so and so. Alabama won.
It's not.
It's so and
3
so.
weeks.
It's Georgia playing so and so. Oh, Georgia's gonna win.
Well, it's not. It's on the West. It's not. Oh, Georgia, you clinched the SEC West 3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Or
like
the
Georgia's
SEC
like
East.
set in there.
Yeah, no, they've already clinched.
It's not one of those seasons where it's just like everyone that's predicted to win wins. And we're seeing a lot.
They gotta
I feel like
it.
we're getting more upsets and just like good football, because you're not seeing a bunch of just blowouts. You're seeing like, okay, Alabama lost, guys. What is happening in football right now?
Yeah.
So it's like, it's nice to see it because it's refreshing, because we haven't seen this in a while. I feel like
no, we have not.
Past like 7-10 years roughly, it's pretty much been the same top teams.
Yeah. And you brought up the upsets. I want to transition to our last upset that we saw, the last big upset that we saw this past weekend, and that is them Baylor Bears.
Let's go.
Taking it to Oklahoma. I understand that the final score is only 13 points. However, if you watch that game, Baylor dominated. Baylor dominated Oklahoma.
It was very nice. Very
nice. I mean, like that's what we've been saying though. Once they face a team with a defense, we said they got a gauntlet. I mean, we said Ohio State had a gauntlet, right? Purdue, Michigan State, Michigan, and before Purdue, a really good defensive Nebraska team, which before that, a very good defensive Penn State team. But we said Oklahoma, they're struggling to score. Okay, they're struggling to be consistent. They got Baylor, Iowa State, Oklahoma State, 3 in a row. All 3 of those programs pride themselves on defense.
Yeah.
All 3 of those programs try to play. Baylor tries to play like an SEC team. Iowa State and Oklahoma State try to play like a Big Ten team. So like
both are defense oriented.
Yeah, all 3 of those.
Oklahoma, none.
Exactly. So them losing to Baylor, I was not shocked at all. I was just happy it happened. Now what sucks is we're not out of the woods yet.
Yeah.
Okay. Oklahoma can still sneak their way in, but I'm very interested to see what the committee does now. They were 8-0 and they were ranked 8. Now that they lost, are they out of the top 10? Do you think they should be?
I think so.
I think you could argue.
I mean, but that's also a little biased because I'm also just like, Oklahoma only has an offense, and that is it. Like but their sole game is we can score, and that is it.
But clearly
we can't
the
stop
committee
teams, and I don't know. Like I get like the committee is like, Oklahoma's was here last year.
But I don't think
They're
the
a one
committee's
loss
acting like
team.
that this year. I
I
don't think
don't.
they're. They said, "Hey, you're 8-0, and we're going to put you at number 8." I think that was a statement of you're not a complete football team,
Yeah.
and we just saw it. So I wouldn't be surprised if they said, "Okay, Oklahoma State, Baylor, like put Baylor at 10 or 11,
Oh yeah.
and have Oklahoma State, because Oklahoma State's in the driver's seat now for the Big 12, put them in the top 10 for sure. Like, stamp it."
Go Cowboys.
But I think you got to drop Oklahoma out of the top 12. I think
Yeah.
this is a statement to them saying, "Hey, you are not what your record says."
Yeah, and
Now,
it's one of those things that like it just needs to happen. Like they just need to play a team that is like they just need to play a top school. Like
Yeah.
I feel
Well,
like we're
and-
both just waiting for that to happen because they can't compete there. So it's like, okay, you try to like beat us now, like you're gonna lose because like
Yeah,
Oklahoma cannot stop any strong offenses.
no.
But if you have a decent defense that can like kind of stop some offense,
Mhm.
you put up
You got
a
a chance.
big shot against Oklahoma.
You got a chance. I think what we're going to see is I'm pulling for Iowa State just because I like what Iowa State's building. I know that they're not having a great year, but I do like the culture. I like the style of play.
Yeah.
I think Iowa State's going to give them a game. I don't see them beating Oklahoma, though. I think Oklahoma will, end up pulling it out. But I think Oklahoma State's going to smack them in the battle of the Bedlam. I think they're going to show Oklahoma who's daddy now. And I think we're going to see an Oklahoma State Baylor Big 12 matchup for the championship.
See, that's kind of what I want to see.
We haven't seen.
What's up, guys? We're back. So recommendation here. If you're gonna record any audio or video, make sure you got space on the drive to do it. Yeah. So Ohio State.
Yeah, we're just gonna we think
we're just gonna hop
talking
into the next one. Not really sure what we're talking about. We'll
the
figure
big thing.
we'll figure it out.
Big thing with the Big 12 is we think Oklahoma State or Baylor's gonna win. Okay, that's about it.
Yeah.
Okay, but Ohio State, Michigan State. We're gonna break down both games really, really quick, and then we're gonna get into what is arguably the biggest game of college football so far this year, and it could be topped the following week with the game. Think about that.
Dude, that's gonna be so nice.
Prime time.
Like you got Ohio State going up against Michigan State this week. Next week, they got the team up north. Well, I mean, they're both teams up north, but back to back up north. So like I'm excited to see Ohio State, Michigan State more than Ohio State, Michigan.
Yes, and we will get to that.
Yeah.
But I was more excited to see them against Purdue, see how they came out against Purdue, right? Because we were worried. We were worried that Purdue, they already slayed Iowa. They already slayed Michigan State. Like they got confidence. And I really don't know what I saw, because what I saw was a complete ass whooping by Ohio State. And I was just like, what, where has this been? Where has this been? Purdue's not terrible. They're not.
But they're not
terrible.
like a top dog. And like, I feel like Ohio State's just showing up. Oh, we don't need to show up this week. It'll be all right. We'll figure it out. And then like the next week where they're playing like no one, it's just like, oh, hey guys, we're here to play this week. Let's see what we can do. And you're just like, you could have done this last week and caused me less heart palpitations.
So frustrating.
But,
it's so frustrating. But they got the win. The running game looked good. I think, we still have some concerns with CJ Stroud and his development, because they're like, oh, look at his statistics and everything. And I'm like, yeah, but again, that's a lot of Jackson Smith, Nick Jigma, and, Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave. That's all them doing work.
Yeah.
Downfield throws are still somewhat of an issue.
Yeah.
So it's more of like the slants and the screens and the dump offs are getting better. And it's also because the wide receivers are that good. I think it was Garrett Wilson at one point literally made a Purdue guy fall down.
Yeah.
like juked him out, and the Purdue guy fell down.
It's one
So
of those things where like it aggravates me to watch because it's like, okay, you can play this good, you can play like flawless, but you don't choose to every week.
yeah,
And like
yeah, that's the frustrating thing.
I don't think Ohio State is playing by any means like top 2 football or top 3 football.
I
But
think
I
they
say
did
that
this past
because it's not
weekend,
yeah, they did this past weekend, but
but
not
consistently, I see what
consistently,
you're
you know?
saying. Yeah, I see what you're saying.
Like, dude, I don't know how many times I was just like looking at the game and going, what are you guys doing? Like, I'm literally walking through Giant Eagle doing my grocery shopping, watching the game and going, what?
The big takeaways that I am liking is, people are going to say, oh, well, you let Purdue put up 30 points. And the reality is, if you take away like 2, 3 big plays, Purdue's not even in the game. Like the
Yeah,
defense was actually really good. Ohio
yeah,
State's defense is continuously getting better and better and better. And I love to see it. The front seven is getting really good. The DBs are finally kind of like
they're meshing
meshing
together. They're
together.
starting to
Like
figure out how everyone else is playing, and they're like, okay,
yes,
we know where we have to be now.
like there was the one defensive breakdown where a corner let somebody go instead of staying with them, and Ronnie Hickman had 2 guys in the end zone to cover, and he's like, I'm screwed
Guys,
either way. Like I can't do anything. So there was that defensive breakdown, and then there were 2 times where their big receiver got free and went running. But other than that, they couldn't do anything.
yeah,
The defense was really stuffing them, and I really like to see that. And then I also think we finally have a kicker again that we believe in.
yeah,
Like it's crazy. Like last year, I think they were a little iffy. That's why we didn't really kick much.
yeah,
Heibel was hurt last year. I think that's
yeah.
what people forget, is that Blake Heibel was hurt last year. But this transfer from North Carolina, of course,
My man,
I'm
my
complimenting
man.
him. I'm complimenting him now, so he'll probably miss one against Michigan State. But he's
Don't say
looked
that.
good. he's looked good all year so far, and I think Ryan Day's a little bit more comfortable with. Well, we can just take the points.
Yeah,
Like he's going to give us a good shot to get points every single time we go down.
yeah, and this way, CJ doesn't have to worry about all the stress of, oh my gosh, I actually have to score and I can't
Yeah,
run the
because he
ball and I
he
have to
can't
throw
handle
it
that.
because oh my gosh, so it's like now Ryan Day can be like, all right, get out, put the kicker in, we'll at least get some
Yeah,
points here.
we'll get some points. Did you, real quick, about CJ Stroud? Did you see the pregame video? Did you watch that?
I did not.
Because
What did I miss?
I think you need to go rewatch it or watch it for the first time. Because I showed it to Jordan and I was like, does this feel awkward? Does this feel weird? And it's, how they do like this, the highlights and the talking over and, or, just trying to like paint a picture for you, build it up to bigger than life. And it was a player talking. He was like, they don't know about what goes on in practice. They don't know about the mountains that we climb together and all this stuff. I'm just like, who's talking here? And then they finally show it's at like a night practice and it's CJ Stroud, but it's only CJ Stroud talking. Like you can't see anybody, like they didn't pan it out where you can see that he's talking to the team. And I'm just like, this feels very forced because he got a lot of criticism after Nebraska. Like it felt
Rightfully so,
very,
though.
yeah, but it felt like it was very forced by the Ohio State football account where they're like, we're going to shove him down your throats so that you believe, so like to show that we believe he's the guy. So you're
He's
going to
not the
believe that he's
guy.
the guy. So
Like,
I just go watch that and let me know what you think. Cause it looks very staged, very awkward, very staged. So I didn't like that going into the game, but I did like the result of the game. I still think he's overrated, but they did what they
100%
needed
agree.
to. They did what they needed to do, and now we're on to Sparty.
Yeah, which hey, CJ, huh?
They
You're
got a
gonna
good
have to be able to
defense.
run. You're gonna
They
have to
got a
be
good
you're gonna be
defense,
running.
dude.
You're gonna be running.
Yeah. Oh man. It's just
Like, dude,
Sparty.
I got so much anxiety going into this next week just because it's gonna go one of two ways. All right.
Win or a
Ohio
loss.
State will blow out Michigan State and play Ohio State football, or
They're gonna lose by a field goal.
no, I think it's gonna be more than a field goal. Not even gonna cap on that.
It's gonna be
If
a
the
missed
offense is
field
not
goal.
producing, we need changes as soon as possible because yeah, that's where we're gonna struggle.
But
And
see, I think
with
that's again like even if they struggle, like you're stuck with CJ Stroud for the rest of the season.
like
I think that's what's gonna.
pull him,
I think it's too late, dude. It's too late.
bro.
I'm not
Just gets
disagreeing
my
with you.
blood boiling. Like this dude
Well,
literally
okay.
goes on an interview and says, "It's not
It's
my
not my
job to run the
job. Yeah, I
ball.
know.
It's your job to make a play happen.
But
And if that means running the
also,
ball, you're gonna run the ball."
yeah, I also think it's worth noting before we break down the keys to success for Ohio State and Michigan State, and then we wrap it up. You know, what was I gonna say? I just lost it. I just lost my thought. Oh, there it is. So when you're up by 30 in the fourth quarter and CJ Stroud doesn't come out of the game at all, that doesn't tell me that your backups are terrible. That tells me that your starting quarterback still needs to develop.
Yeah.
And that's an issue when you're in the third to last game of the season. That's an issue of the regular season. Like you're in game number 10 of 12 in the regular season, and you're not allowed to get pulled because you still need to develop. If we don't see an issue with that, we're not going to talk about that. Then the media needs to wake up.
Yeah.
Like that's a clear issue here. Like Kyle McCord should have been in there the whole fourth quarter.
Yeah. And I think, you can also just say like Ohio State, yes, we've typically always been, we'll stick behind our number one quarterback, as long as we
new
can.
Era, screw that.
But like if you're gonna stick behind a quarterback who's not willing to try and extend the play,
not willing to put his life on the line for real. Like he's not willing to put I shouldn't say life because it is just a game.
Yeah.
But he's not willing to put his body.
Yeah. And it's line. Like you don't have to take hits. If you don't want to take a hit, you don't have to take a hit. Like if that's the thing that's like holding you back, like who cares if you're not the best runner? You don't have to be the best runner. You just have to be able to run and get out of the pocket. Luck. Yeah, dude, you could literally be Andrew Luck. Look at him. Like no, I know
he would go after it though. Like he'd be like, I'm gonna put my body on the line for this. So yeah, I completely agree with what you're saying.
It's just like, and I don't want to keep this rant going because it's just gonna set me off. But like, dude, when it comes down to it, at the end of the day, if CJ shows up to play, it's gonna be a win. If he doesn't and he stays in the whole game, it's gonna be a loss.
Yeah, well, speaking of that, prediction there. Keys to success. I think for Ohio State defensively, and correct me if I'm wrong or state your opinion.
Yeah,
I think Ohio State defensively, if you force Michigan State to pass, you have a good chance of winning.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
If you slow down Walker, I mean, he's going to get his yards, right? He's like Melvin Gordon. Okay, he's going to get the yards. Just limit the scoring opportunities, right? Just limit the big plays. If he's averaging, if he gets 100 yards and he's averaging 2 yards per carry, I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
He's earning every single yard.
But he's a dog.
Yes, like, exactly.
If you do not shut him down early and keep him shut down, he will take the game over real quick.
But I also think
we have the number one running back in the nation right now. Hands down.
I also think we have the front seven equipped to do that. I think we're fine.
Oh yeah. No, I think they can definitely handle it. I think it'll be more on the aspect of not allowing many crazy penalties on defense. So like limiting that. Yeah. And Ohio State's been pretty good about that. So I'm not too worried about it. But if they start getting into offsides.
Yeah, if they're getting like that, if they're getting twitchy, then we have an issue. Yeah. I think if you force Michigan State to pass the ball, you limit the big plays by Walker, they're in a position defensively to win the game. And I actually think it's very interesting because I think Michigan State's in the same boat.
Oh, yeah.
If you force Ohio State to become one-dimensional with the pass, and then you're setting up your offense for a good chance to win the game. So I think the defenses might have the same look going into it.
Oh, yeah.
If we like Michigan State, it's kind of like you want to say, oh, well, we want to force them to run the ball because they have so many good receivers. But at the same time, it's if we can make them one-dimensional, we've seen how, against Penn State, they were one-dimensional and they struggled.
Yeah.
So I would say, you know what? Fight fire with fire. Say, hey, you're going to pass the ball, but we're going to make it tough, right? We're not going to let you run. We're going to make you one-dimensional. I think offensively, I find it funny because I think it's offensively they're similar as well. Obviously, you want to, pound the ball, pound the run game with Walker if you're Michigan State. However, if I'm Michigan State offensively, I want to show that I can pass the ball. I want to take accurate deep threats early and often. Stretch the field, stretch out the DBs, stretch out the linebackers, and then pound it with Walker.
Oh, dude. That would literally set Michigan State up for a win right there.
Exactly. Like if you show hey, we can have a vertical threat, it's not just, dump offs and screens. If we can spread the field vertically, then I think Michigan State has a chance to win.
Oh, yeah.
Because then it's like you're playing for something completely different. And then on the counter side, Ohio State, I think it's not you need to run the ball. I think you just need to be balanced.
Yeah, you can't show too much like favoritism toward passing.
You truly need to be balanced. That's all Ohio State needs to do.
And with that passing, you can't just keep it to the short plays too. That's the thing that, like you said, for Michigan State, you have to expand the field vertically. And I'm not going to say it, but some people in positions struggle with that part of the game. They have all the assets, but they just can't do it. If you know what I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about. If you don't know what I'm talking about, just check out any of the last podcasts. Literally. But yeah, like I agree with a lot of the points you made. One thing that I do think that Ohio State also needs to do, besides, maintaining the run and spreading out the field vertically, is just the little things. Just managing time, managing fouls, not creating any extra yards for Michigan State because they will burn you. Mm-hmm. Like if you're giving up a holding call and an offsides call every possession,
you're undisciplined,
that's game right there. You have to be disciplined if you're going to beat Michigan State.
At least we won't see Harry Miller with a bunch of holding penalties this year. Oh my God. No, I completely agree. If you're undisciplined, but that goes with like every single team. I think it's worth noting because we've seen Ohio State under Ryan Day be undisciplined.
Yeah.
Consistently with stupid penalties. And we saw it last week again, a bunch of false starts, right?
Yeah.
Like that just can't happen.
Yeah.
So no, I think you hit the nail on the head.
And then I got one more thing for Michigan State and then we can get out of here. Michigan State, if you want an easy dub, shut down the pass game.
Blitz.
For
real. Blitz. Go all out.
CJ does not know what he's doing in the pocket. If you give him pressure, you're going to make the team a one-hand threat where we're just trying to force Teague down your throat or Henderson.
Teague hasn't been dressing, but yeah.
I know. But we need something back there.
You got to blitz. You got to blitz and play zone.
Yeah.
Just to confuse him. That's all.
Yeah.
That's all.
CJ is not that experienced. And if you do that, good job.
But he's
a
Heisman front runner.
We're getting into that next episode. Don't get me boiling, bro. All right, guys. Thanks for tuning in this week. We will be back with another episode later. Check it out. See ya.